You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.
Join us now for the expert source for inside information on the options markets. It's time for Options Insider Radio with your host, Mark Longo.
Everybody, that's a drop we don't get to hear that much on the network anymore. Yes, Options Insider Radio, the interview program here on the network. A lot of our interview content has been absorbed into other programs over the years, like our bootcamp or advisors option or volatility views of the option block or TWIFO. We have guests on all those all the time, crypto rundown as well. Don't get a chance to bring out the old Options Insider Radio drop that much anymore. But you know what? We're always happy to do it for our next guest, Mr. Mead Welles, the co-founder, chairman, and treasurer over there at ALTSO, a.k.a. A Leg to Stand On. Mead, welcome back to the network, sir. It has been too long.
Thank you, Mark. It's nice to be back.
Yeah, we have some catching up to do. It is pretty much our annual call, our annual check-in on all things going on over there at ALTSO. Obviously, Mead, these are crazy times in the market, crazy times here for the network as well. So we have a lot of new people joining the network and listening to the content week after week and month after month. So in the intervening year, since you and I last chatted, a lot of new folks have tuned in to the world of options and indeed the content who may have never heard of ALTSO. So let's start there, Mead. What are we talking about? What is A Leg to Stand On?
So A Leg to Stand On is a registered 501c3 charity based in New York City that helps children in developing countries that have limb disabilities. These are children that were born without arms or legs, or they went through a traumatic injury which resulted in the loss of an arm or a leg or arms and legs, or they were born with deformities of the arms or legs. We provide free corrective surgery or free prosthetics from the ages of birth until 21. And we've been doing this for almost 20 years now. And that's what we do.
And how has that been going? I know when we chatted last year, we were talking about the challenges of trying to administer these limbs and to reach these kids and to get the funds in a pandemic era. Obviously, it's challenging in a normal time, let alone in a pandemic era. So how has that gone over the past year? How have you been able to raise the funds and reach out to the kids with all these other issues going on in the world, Mead?
So it certainly has been a challenge. I think everybody's found the last couple of years have been a challenge in whatever form it has been, but it's been eye-opening on many levels. I think for us, one of the things that we've had to do is find ways of getting the PPE, the personal protective equipment, over to our project partners so that they could continue to treat the children. Because they couldn't afford to expose the families to the risk of getting COVID. And so that became a big focus for us over the last couple years. Now that we're on the back end of it, things are moving along nicely and we're getting back to normalcy, which is really a welcomed position to be in. But this year we have our annual fundraiser Rocktoberfest, was formerly called Hedge Fund Rocktoberfest. Now we've reduced it down to Rocktoberfest, but it still does focus on the world of professional finance, sort of white collar superheroes, as we like to call them. And we're getting back to our first live event in the last 3 years, so we're very excited about that.
Well, let's get into that then. Rocktoberfest. I am pleased to have been to a number of these over the years. Of course, you mentioned they haven't been in person. They've been mostly virtual, but Rocktoberfest is coming back to Chicago and indeed coming back to New York soon, Mead. So tell our listeners what you guys have planned and what they can expect and when these events are occurring.
Sure. So Rocktoberfest, for those that don't know, is an annual event that we've held in Chicago and in New York City. We've had it at the Hard Rock Cafe in New York for several years, in Times Square, and at the City Winery in Chicago. This year we have the event in Chicago on the 13th of October, again at City Winery, and we have it on the 20th of October at the Hard Rock Cafe in New York City. These events are fantastic to come to because you see bands made up of hedge fund and other finance professionals perform sets of rock music in front of an audience of their peers, and usually have the press out, everyone from CNBC to the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and other prestigious news sources, including the Options Insider, is represented.
The most prestigious of all, dare I say, sir.
Yes, of course. But we have 7 bands playing in New York City, and we have 6 bands playing in Chicago. There's a main stage where they've got a full-out rock show, and then they have acoustic rooms where acoustic sets are played. They're sort of more intimate, quieter, very good for networking. There's open bars and fast food. They have the food stations too for sort of a buffet-style meal. And we have major organizations or sponsors. Companies like ADM Investor Services and CME and CBOE and Eurex and ICE and Wells Fargo, and the list goes on and on and on. It's really great firms that have been so supportive, even through the tough years. They've sort of stuck with us, and so it's a very exciting and fun opportunity to see some professional Wall Streeters on stage letting their hair down, and those that have any hair left, and they rock it out. And they do actually surprisingly great jobs of performing these classic rock sets. It's not just classic rock; it can be anything from classic rock to modern pop from today. So it's really a wide variety of music that you hear.
I know last year you kind of added the live streaming component. For those of our listeners out there who are not going to be in the Chicago or New York area, but maybe they still want to check it out, you still going to offer the live stream this year as well?
Yes, we will. The last 2 years we had to do virtual events, and they were really, I would say, very successful given the fact that it was everything was done remotely. But this year we're going to combine the two, and I think people are excited to be back in person, to see friends, to raise a glass, and celebrate the fact that we're on the way out of this pandemic.
Yes, let's all hope so, right, sir? So we have October 13th here in Chicago in City Winery, right down the street here from the studio, and then October 20th in New York City. Those are the dates, Mead?
Yes, October 20th in New York City and October 13th in Chicago. And you can find all this information is online on the Elective Stand On website. That website is the acronym for Elective Stand On, ALTSO.org. And there's that and plenty of information about the organization, the events. You can click on the Rocktoberfest page at the top, and you'll see the details. And you can then click on either the Chicago event or the New York event to find out how to buy tickets.
And last time you and I chatted, Mead, you guys had just added crypto as a way for folks to support the charity. Is that still an option? And how has that been going over the past year?
It is an option. I think, crypto's had a bit of a tough run, as I'm sure everyone knows. And so we've, we continue to see the traditional ticket purchases and sponsors by check or a credit card or ACH or wire transfer, but crypto is sort of a neat new way to help contribute and support those that are less fortunate than us. So that is an option. And again, you can find all that information on our website, if depending on what you want to do. But you can look at there's a donate tab where if you click on that, you'll be given all the options on how to make a donation.
I think and certainly probably a lot of our listeners assume when they hear children in the developing world who are missing limbs, they probably immediately assume landmines and other injuries like that. But those landmine victims actually make up only a small percentage of the kids you folks actually help. So what kind of kids are you guys treating with this A Leg to Stand On?
So we help really any child, no matter what the cause of the disability was or is. We do find that in a lot of these emerging countries, the traffic patterns and behaviors of typical people commuting from here to there are not as disciplined or organized as they are perhaps in the West. So you'll find situations where buses will be overloaded with people, or you'll find a family on a moped where you've got a father and a mother and a child all riding on a single-seated moped, and they'll be weaving through traffic. And what happens is you'll have a very large number of accidents where the child, even the parent, will end up losing a limb or having a very bad traumatic injury, which will lead to a disabled limb. So that accounts for a fairly substantial amount of cases that we treat. We also have, in many emerging countries, you've got water systems that may have been contaminated by various pollutants that have been dumped into the river systems. And, you'll find that the incidence of children born with a birth defect that disables a limb is also a very prominent or very prevalent situation. So, and then last, the ambulatory services in these developing countries, meaning the ambulance access is not as great as maybe we'd like it to be. So you'll have children that are playing in the countryside or in the rural areas, and they'll fall, or they might fall off a tractor or fall out of a tree, and they'll break a limb. They won't get to the hospital for several days. And during that period, gangrene will set in, and the only recourse the doctors have is to amputate the limb, which is a real shame. Ironically, in emerging countries, the vast majority of limb disabilities are upper extremity disabilities, meaning they have to do with the arms, the hands or the forearm or the entire arm just beneath the shoulder. In developed countries, it's very rare to have an upper extremity disability. Oftentimes, you'll have a leg that is broken badly or in an accident is severed. But so you'll see the majority of limb disabilities are lower extremities. So that just goes to say that these traffic circumstances and the ambulatory services all could be improved on greatly in order to reduce the number of children that suffer from this issue.
And Mead, the last time we chatted, you had added to the ALTSO calendar. So it wasn't just the Rocktober events. You had pre-jam events. You had Sweat for ALTSO. All sorts of other events were dotting the calendar. Are you still offering those? And what can folks look forward to outside of the Rocktoberfest events, Mead?
Yeah, we have all sorts of events throughout the year, but the two main ones are the Rocktoberfest events in Chicago and New York. We do have like a Sweat for ALTSO, which are spin classes where people come and they'll raise money and they'll participate together to help raise more money, sort of like a booster-thon type of thing. And we'll host all sorts of different events throughout the year in different locations. Oftentimes, people wanted to contribute or help. They don't have the financial means to do so. So they volunteer to host some sort of event, a run, a group run, or a charity run, or a bake sale, or whatever the activity might be. There are great efforts to try to help, and we're not too picky. We're grateful for any support we get, whether it's monetary, physical, or just some word of mouth that gets passed around to give us awareness, and so people understand what we're doing.
And you guys have been doing some great work over there on trying to develop low-cost prosthetics so you could reach more kids in the developing world. Tell our listeners about the Joshi device that you guys have created and why that's really kind of revolutionizing the game in terms of being able to access more kids and provide more prosthetics to more children at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's a great point, Mark. Over the years, we found that we've had to source the components for limb kits from various sources, and either due to commercial pressure or logistical costs or import regulations, it's been challenging and it can be costly when we are trying to buy limb kits from third-party factories. So we chose to negotiate and get a high-quality limb kit that's easy for us to make adjustments and allow for a child to grow with the limb kit. And we've got it produced by a factory that we deal with directly so that we're able to get the lowest cost, highest quality product on a consistent basis without the risks or the burdens of having to source from multiple different suppliers. That limb kit is called the Joshi limb, and it's named after one of our first prosthetic engineers, Dhiren Joshi, who's based in Ahmedabad, India. And Dhiren is just a wonderful human being. He was the head prosthetic engineer at Paraplegia Hospital in Ahmedabad, and on the side, helped be the ambassador for Lead to Stand On over in Ahmedabad, and has helped thousands and thousands and thousands of children with our support, independent of his day job at Paraplegia Hospital. And so we felt that he deserved the honor of being awarded the naming of the Joshi limb. But it's a great limb. It's aesthetically attractive to look at, which obviously for children, it's important that it look cool and not just be functional. We often think about we want to give them a solid limb, but we forget about the visual effect of how the other kids are going to stare at them. And so giving them a modular, kind of very high-tech aluminum component device, it turns what would be a stigma into something that's cool. And we call the kids cool kids as a result. So it's the Joshi limb is we've got the price negotiated down to around $250 a limb, and that $250 can change a child's life fundamentally forever. So it's really the cost of a big dinner out with a bunch of friends. You can actually have a material impact on a human being's life with that.
That's a great point about the aesthetics. We don't think about that. You think about giving the kids the function, and you think function is all that matters, but you don't want the kid to be a pariah, at least any more than they already are in the developing world, where they have a little bit different viewpoint on some of these injuries than perhaps we do here in the West. So having something that is not just functional, but also, you're right, is aesthetically pleasing, makes them, as you guys put it, quote unquote, cool kids. That's a very important distinction, and I'm glad to see you guys are focusing on that, Mead.
Yeah, it's actually something that we didn't learn until several years after we started, that, in many of these emerging countries, they don't have the social graces that we've grown up with in the West. Things like staring. We're taught not to stare at others, that it's impolite. And, in these countries, we hear stories about, for example, a girl that lost both her arms just beneath her shoulders because she was flying a kite that her grandfather made her with parts from a junkyard. And the line of the kite was made out of wire. And during the kite contest that she was flying the kite in, a big gust of wind came along and sent the kite into some electrical lines, and it sent a jolt of electricity down the lines and literally blew off both of her arms just beneath the shoulders. And it burned her torso all the way up to the bottom of her chin. And this girl actually would have been a model from all Western standards, very high cheekbones, beautiful skin, beautiful eyes, beautiful face. And she was about 13, 14 years old. Now she had no arms. And when we fitted her with two prosthetics that had opposing shoulder straps, meaning they had shoulder straps that went around the opposite shoulder blade, and it allowed for, these are sort of dynamic prosthetics. So when she flexed her shoulder blade, she could pinch the hand on the prosthetic. So now she went from zero functionality to maybe 60% functionality, which is an enormous gain coming from zero. But the first thing she did is she raised the hands of the prosthetics over her eyes and began to cry. And when she realized that she could actually shield herself from being stared at, she started to get convulsing because the weight of her disability and the emotional trauma was so severe that she felt so relieved. And she didn't speak English, but she spoke to the nurse, and the nurse said, that every day she wakes up, when she has to go to the bathroom, she has to ask someone to help her. To brush her teeth, someone has to help her. When she wants to eat, someone has to help her. When she walks down the street, the children would stop and stare as she walked by because they noticed that she had no arms. And she felt like a freak, and she was treated like a freak. So you can imagine how humiliating that must be. Every personal need that a young girl has, she has to ask someone else to help her with it. And when we gave her those limbs, those prosthetic arms, the biggest relief was not that she could open doors or pick up a cup of water and drink it herself. It was that no one would stare at her anymore. She would become anonymous, and that's all she cared about, is just not being stared at, just blending in and not being seen. So you realize how powerful the emotional impact is above and beyond just the physical ability of being able to have the function.
Wow, that's truly heartbreaking stuff there, listeners. So you too can become a part of this. The events coming up here, if you are in Chicago or in New York, the live events, October 13th here in Chicago City Winery, right down the street here from the studio, October 20th in New York at the Hard Rock Cafe. If you can make it out, these are great events. I know a lot of you are not going to be in the area at the time, so make sure you check out the live stream. As Mead said, doesn't cost much, only $250 or whatever portion of that you could contribute. They add it up. Every $250 they collect goes towards a limb for a kid in the developing world. That is not much to really transform someone's life. And Mead, if they want to learn more about your events again, or they want to check out the charity for themselves and the work you guys are doing, where should they go? What should they do, Mead?
So the easiest thing to do is just go to our website, which is our acronym for a leg to stand on, ALTSO.org. And there's a menu on the top right. It allows you to sort of scroll through and learn about who we are, our history, and how you can take action to help others. And we have all sorts of ways of everything from the Next Gen Club, where you can donate a certain amount out of your paycheck, $5 or $1 every month, and it helps to support the maintenance of a child's limb kit, or might help replace the foot every year because the components will break down over time and they need to be replaced. So there are different ways. And it can be anything from a small donation to a large donation to just giving up time or participating in some of the events. The Rocktober events are just two. Those happen to be our biggest ones. Those are great opportunities to meet people, to network, and learn more about the organization. But the website is really a great resource, which will give you all the answers that you have. And we also we're very open and very transparent organization. So anyone is welcome to call. And there's only 4 employees, and we're here. We love what we do, and we're happy to speak about it all day long. So if anyone ever feels the need or desire to ask questions or learn more, please feel free to call or email.
There you go. Check it out. A leg to stand on. That's ALTSO. That's the acronym. The website is ALTSO.org. It has all the information, not just on the events. Those are obviously big parts of what they do, but also throughout the year. You can check out the website. There's a donate button. There's information on their other events, on the kids they're helping, how you can take action, and quite a bit more. You can also give them a follow on Twitter while you're at it. It's at A Leg to Stand On, all one word, for more information on everything they have going on. Mead, I wish you guys great luck. As you know, I always do. We're big fans of your organization. We hope your upcoming events are great successes, and I'll look forward to hopefully seeing you and talking to you again in the near future, sir.
Likewise, Mark. Appreciate the time, and best of luck to all the listeners and their option strategies. This is a dangerous market. It's a volatile market, and understanding your option strategies is key to your success. So I wish everyone great luck with that. And Mark, thank you for your support and your kind words. We look forward to hopefully seeing you at Rocktoberfest in Chicago, if not sooner. And God bless you all. Thank you.
And Mead, really quickly, since you did mention that before we wrap up here, you are, of course, in your day job, the CEO over there at Octagon Asset Management. These are crazy times. If you want to leave our audience with any interesting thoughts or what this year has been like for you guys, this tumultuous year in the markets for you folks over there at Octagon, have at it, sir. I'm sure our audience would love to hear it.
Yeah, well, we're a private credit shop that focuses on trade finance. So we help provide financing to exporters, importers, producers, processors, and trading companies. Obviously, with the bout in the financial markets, there's been a lot of aversion from banks and other lenders to extend credit these days. And with rising interest rates, it makes it even harder. But then you couple that with inflating commodity prices, the demands for financing for doing the same amount of business as the year before are now much greater simply because the price is higher. So we've just had the phone ringing off the hook, and it's been a very, very active time. Thankfully, nothing big has really gone wrong, but we've got more demand than we can shake a stick at in terms of need for financing. It's a crazy time. You know, we hopefully we'll take our medicine with these rising interest rates, and given the severity of the hikes and the quick reaction of the Fed and the ECB, I think they're doing a good job of attacking it head on. And I think there's no sugarcoating here. I think it's healthy. It's going to be painful, but I think it's going to be best for everybody in the long term that we just address it now rather than drag it out.
Thank you for that there, Mead. Again, we're looking forward to seeing everything going on with ALTSO, a leg to stand on, ALTSO.org, a great organization, a great event if you can make it. If not, check out the live stream, and of course, check them out throughout the year for ways you guys can get involved and help out the cool kids over there at ALTSO. That's going to do it for us today here on the network. Of course, we're back again tomorrow with a trifecta of content for you folks over there on the pro side. Of course, Options Bootcamp live, and then after that we have the Advisors Option live for you folks, and then Mr. Overby coming in with Options Playbook Radio after that, live to tape for all you on-demand folks. Then back again throughout the week all the way to next week, another great pro Q&A session Tuesday. We'll see you then.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.